Hey, Joshua with Cultural Catholic on the last episode of the mini-series based from the information from Prothero's God is Not One Book. And so the last one and the shortest one, since the chapter was the shortest, is on atheism. Long story short, as long as there have been people believing in religion, atheism has been a thing. Atheism simply means the lack in belief of God. It could be the gods of Greece, the gods of the Germanic peoples, yada yada yada. Atheist simply means the lack of a belief in God. Um, there really aren't any holy books. The closest you could get would be like Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, their books on atheism. That would be the closest you could get. But really, it's all that it is. Really, there aren't any holy books or religious books. Now, some would argue that atheism isn't a religion, but Prothero puts forth the idea that the orthodoxy of not believing in a god could be considered orthodoxy uh, uh, in a religious sense because atheists, as a whole, in general, are adamant in their belief of there is no God. Um, Now, most atheists, as he pointed out, are not super vocal about their atheism or proselytizing about their atheism, and those would be what he would call average atheists. They're just as moral as Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Jews, whatever you want to, whatever religion you want to throw out there. But uh, uh, they just don't believe in an overarching religion that makes them want to be good. Now, new atheism is kind of closer to what they kind of argue against. However, new atheism focuses largely, like, they in general don't believe in a God, but what they largely argue against is the Abrahamic God. So the God of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, simply because that is what they know best. Um, and these new atheists are Christopher Hitchens, before he died, um, Richard Dawkins, and Sam Harris. Um, they proselytize that there is no God, and believing in a religion is irrational. Um, and of course, they have the theology, the orthodoxy of not believing in a God, and they add that believing in a God is illogical, um, and that is the basic on the split between typical atheism and new atheism. Um, so the population of atheists is fairly small. Um, the largest is about 9% in Western Europe. It's a little smaller in East Asia, Eastern Europe, in North America, and then smallest in Africa and South America. But they are getting a pretty good size. They do have a pretty good size influence um, on our society, um, especially with the new atheist movement itself. Um, and the atheists are holding not and while modern American voters would vote for a Muslim before they vote for an atheist. Excuse me. Um, Atheists are getting platforms like a famous atheist on television is uh, Bill Maher. He is probably the best known atheist who is considered an academic. Richard Dawkins is probably the best known academic new atheist. The new atheist I have the least, and this is just my personal thing. that I have the most problems with personally is Sam Harris. And the things that he said has kind of launched him into stardom. Um, and atheists are also starting to advocate for themselves to kind of show that they are just as moral as those who follow a religion. Um, and Personally, I think we need to afford equal rights to atheists, people who practice Yoruba religions, Christians, Muslims, Jews, every religion in that book, plus every religion on the planet, so long as human sacrifice is not included. Um, Animal sacrifice, go ahead, as long as it's humane. But yeah, so this has been my mini series on religion, as uh, put forth in Stephen Prothero's God Is Not One book. I'd like to give a little bit of a shout out to Religion for Breakfast, which is run by a grad student at Boston University, and he does kind of like what I tried to do with this miniseries, only as a whole channel, talking about religion in a religious studies style. I probably didn't do that as well as he does, and on top of that, I probably in each and every video left out a lot of stuff, because if I wanted to do super extensive, not only based off of what Prothero wrote, but what I know and what I could research, we would probably have a day-long video. So yeah, this is Joshua with Cultural Catholic signing off.